pleasure to hand it off to Andrew for our brief introduction here, and I'll flip as we go.
Great, thank you, Ken. So just first wanted to highlight that recently the Passive House Institute has actually issued version 10 of the criteria document. So that particularly for those who have been through the certification process before, but of course anyone new to it as well, it's good to be aware that there's a new criteria document. I've forgotten the exact publication date, but essentially now that new criteria have been published, going forward, all new projects will be required to adopt the new criteria. And so we're in a bit of a transition period. Obviously, if you have an older project that started before the release of criteria, then naturally you can continue with the older criteria. If there's any debt.
Well, we do want to, sorry if I interrupt along the way, Andrew, but just to clarify, you may be getting to it, but that in the United States with the IP version, because we don't actually have a version of PHPP yet with the new criteria baked into it.
Yes, that's great.
We're still allowed to use new projects to use the old criteria, although you're encouraged to use the new criteria as informational and guidance.
That's great. Yeah, a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Ken. Exactly. Yeah. So where you're using IP version of PHPP, version 10 has not been released yet. So when that is published, then the new criteria in IP will become in effect as well. So yeah, just wanted to point this out that we're in a bit of a transition period, just when in doubt, just speak to the certifier that you may be working with on a new project to clarify what would be required. It's good to highlight, refresh for those who may be a bit out of touch. There are some core standards, 3 core standards that the Institute has developed and maintained. You've got let's say the original Passive House standard, which also now has, for a while, has had different classes, the Classic, Plus, or Premium, which recognizes additional energy efficiency as well as integration of renewable technology. There's the EnerPHit standard for retrofit buildings. So for existing buildings that would be challenged to meet the Passive House building standard, we have the retrofit option. And again, this also has the different classes of Classic, Plus, and Premium. We also have the PHI low energy building. So for projects where either of those standards may not be suitable for whatever reason, this is certainly a good standard that can be worked towards as well. In terms of EnerPHit, again, some of you may have been involved in EnerPHits. For others, would be very new. But we're certainly seeing a greater uptake of EnerPHit in different types of buildings. So it's really exciting because we obviously need some mass adoption of a standard like EnerPHit to address our existing stock. And there are 2 pathways, and on different projects, we've had to use different one of the 2 different pathways. And it varies depending on the building type, right? But we do have a more performance-based path, which is more akin to what you'd see with a new build Passive House. And then there's a more prescriptive approach, looking at component-wise requirements as well. Both have validity. One will make likely more sense on a given project, depending on its characteristics. And you can see there is some variation by climate as well, right? So depending on your climate, you'll want to check what specific requirements apply to your project. And in terms of certifiers, there are now over 100 across the world, and there are numerous working in North America. So we at PO Passive House happen to have, be one company, but there are numerous companies both based in North America or specifically in the US, as well as others around the world that do provide services into North America as well. So we have a link there you can review to see who are active certifiers, and reach out to whoever you feel would be a good fit for your project. We also have a group, the North American Certifiers Circle. So this is an active group of companies working in as certifiers in North America, and so we collaborate together just to ensure consistency of how the standards applied in North America, discuss any technical issues that come up, and knowledge sharing. So while there's competition, there's also a good level of collaboration, which is just a part and parcel of how we do things in Passive House. And in terms of certification process, particularly if you're embarking on a certification for the first time, very important to understand how the process works, and certainly best practices as well. And so there's a certain way we'd recommend engaging with a certifier throughout the project process from design through construction. And here we have, this is meant to be read. We're going to be sharing the slides with you after the presentation, so you'll have this for reference. But yeah, there's a kind of visual flow chart to give you an idea of how that might flow through the project, as well as more kind of concrete description of different key stages in the certification process, including importantly after construction, when the building's completed, occupied, what kind of final checks and documentation need to be provided as well. Okay, in terms of document collation and submission, this is certainly something, as a certified Passive House designer or consultant, you'd be tasked with preparing to, submit to the certifier, as well as engage with them through the review process. And the Passive House Institute does maintain its own online platform. And you're encouraged to check that out and see if it kind of fits how you work, the work stream. It's particularly relevant to look at, okay, how is the project working in terms of integration, documentation, communication, and all that. And so it can certainly be a fit for your projects. So you definitely want to check that out. And then individual certifiers may have their own submission structure or platform to work with as well. So that's something you can discuss with the certifiers you're considering working with, to see what might be the best fit.
Right. And I would just add, these tools are really important, and particularly as the projects get more complicated, so that you can track what's missing and what's complete, where more information is needed. Because oftentimes folks get caught up and they forget about pieces of information that they just haven't provided, and they're wondering where their certification might be. And it's like, well, they're not all green check marks yet. You need all green check marks. And to really hone in on that.
Yeah, and I think I'll pick up on that, Ken, that, documentation is key. So, when you're making assumptions, say in PHPP modeling, or you don't have information on a product because it hasn't been specified yet or whatever, just really explaining to the certifier what you're doing is really important. The clearer, more comprehensive the communication, the smoother the process goes. Usually, when there's a breakdown of communication, that's when the certification process can become challenging for the entire team, including the certifier. Yeah, and I mean that's really brings to us a key point about teamwork. So just as the design team and even construction team, project team is best working in a collaborative, integrative fashion, to deliver the best, most cost-effective project. Integrating the certifier into that collaborative environment, I think, is important as well. So while the certifier maintains a certain separation, right, it's a independent third-party person or organization that's ensuring integrity of third-party review process, keeping them abreast of developments on the project, really engaging with them from the get-go as early as is feasible in the project, and having them understand different aspects of the project, I think is really important. That will really help streamline the process as well, and make it a more favorable process. And yeah, if you come to the end and you're successful at completing certification, then the owner will be issued with a Passivhaus certificate. And there's an option to purchase a plaque as well. So depending on the building standard, actually will the plaque and certificate will reflect that, whether it's Passivhaus, EnerPHit, or low energy building. But this is, concrete evidence. Okay, the building has been certified. And then another area which is actually a great resource for information on different projects, technical solutions and whatnot is the Passivhaus database. You can see it linked down there as well. And this gives you a wealth. I mean, there's several thousand projects on there now from across the world. And some with quite detailed information. Some will even, you'll be able to download a case study. So here's an example of a particular project. This is many of you will probably recognize this, the Cornell student residence. Yeah, there's a detailed project documentation. It's probably about 40 pages of information about the project. So free to download, you can review it and understand, okay, some of the key aspects related to Passivhaus, how the project actually handled them. So we encourage you, if you're going through the certification process, to get your project up on here and provide as much detail as you can. And, the Institute is making it easier and easier as we go to be able to upload this information. So it's not it's not a huge amount of effort to actually provide this information into the database.
Right. And it's true that the project does not need to be certified to be in the database, but that PHPP needs to have been completed. So you need to be far enough along so that you know that your design is hitting the Passivhaus metrics, and it could still be under construction or nearing completion, whatever state it's in. And you're putting out the information on the project there. It's a great visibility tool for visibility as well.
And there are plenty of resources for certification. So, Passivhaus Network website is a good starting point. With various links to different resources, as well as the Passivhaus Institute's website. So they got a section dedicated to certification, and in particular around buildings. So you can see the drop down list from their menu there of different resources that you can download. So I encourage you to go there and look back every so often as well, because you want to make sure you have the latest version of whatever document or tool you're referencing. So good to check every so often. And then there's a suite of specific tools. It could be very, technical tools, supporting tools for PHPP modeling. One tool in particular I'll highlight, which we have fully integrated into our practice and we use on every project, every consulting project, and we encourage projects that we're certifying to use, is Design PH. Very effective tool for early stage modeling of projects, as well as you can use it even through documentation of the project, and it links up really well with PHPP. And so we find this this actually helps us as certifiers be able to understand the project better and be able to review things quicker. So it can reduce both the cost and time for building certification. And further ones, so outside of the Passivhaus Institute or Passipedia, there are numerous other websites, including other organizations such as ourselves, Building Type in New York, Passivhaus Academy in Ireland, WARM in the UK, and other kind of organizations and even individuals that have actually released different tools or resources to help Passivhaus practitioners, whether it's detailing books or special tools or guides for modeling or whatnot. There's a wealth of information out here to really engage with.